So Steven Pinker is talking about human nature in this recording. And before I even say what I think about what he said about what human nature is, I think I just want to kind of talk about what it means for something to have a nature, especially humanity. What is the essence of humanity is essentially what you're asking. And to get to the real essence of humanity, you need to somehow reduce humanity to one specific metaphor, which is all science can ever do. It chooses the most appropriate metaphor for the data it collects, or sometimes it collects data in such a way as to confirm the metaphor that it has already selected. And there's a whole dialectical process that goes on uh, to shift the paradigms in science. But really, there's many, many paradigms that exist at all times in science. There's really no coherent scientific worldview at the moment. There are many different theories about varying aspects of the physical world, which um, maybe in clusters confirm general pictures of the universe, but when looked at from an even wider angle, you see, well, there's a cluster of science over here that sort of projects this kind of universe, and a cluster of science over here that sees it more this way. And so metaphors confirm data, and we can't ever say what science itself says. Because to say anything about anything in general is not to say what it is, it's to say what it is in general from your privileged metaphorical understanding of reality. So when Steven Pinker says that human beings aren't blank slate, we actually have some genetic qualities which they don't necessarily in any way determine what we think or even how we think. They're influencing how we think all the time, but not what we think. They don't give us specific beliefs. There's no God gene. Um, but to even talk about blank slate again, what do we mean by a slate? What is a slate? Okay, it's the mind, and the mind is this container, right, of ideas. And if it's blank slate, we're born with an empty container, and everything we know about the world is given to us through experience. If it's not blank slate, if there's certain features of the container which in some ways determine on one hand or possibly just influence the way we can ever see the world to begin with. Um, and when I look at any of these dichotomies between nature and nurture, which one is really playing a larger role, all we're doing here is making a false dualism between mind and matter. It's the same old Cartesian dualism all over again. It's projecting what seems like an intuitive view of nature onto our experience of nature, and then confirming that experience by only approaching nature in such a way that would confirm it, by doing experiments that of course, return data that fits into the preconceived conceptual model that you've designed the machine itself to predict. Um, so that's why very sophisticated physical experiments, particle accelerators and whatnot, they're not, um, they've got a very sophisticated mathematical um, system built in order to predict the way that their sensors on the machines that they've built to run these tests um, are designed to receive this activity. So there's energy flying around, and the detectors um, collect data in which the scientists interpret based on the mathematical models that they've used to design the machines themselves. So it's this recursive understanding of something that was never separate from us. We're trying to understand energy um, through a grid, through our language, and we're putting our language up in front of nature in order to communicate to other scientists how to manipulate energy in the same way. So they're really making magical spells on us in a way. Uh, if you can see what I'm saying. But back to human nature. I mean, what is human nature? I think this kind of question is showing that there's a new way of looking at evolution and what it means to be a human being. Human beings are, I mean, every sophisticated culture assigns a certain amount of freedom to humanity that isn't present in the rest of the natural world. And I think what that is trying to express is that somehow we have to take responsibility for our own nature. And if we are in some sense responsible for our nature, for our being as human beings, we have to we can't blame our genes for anything. We can't say that there's an excuse for people to be violent or selfish. I mean, we can be selfish or we can be selfless. And yeah, maybe it has something to do with genes, but it has just as much to do with the way you're raised and the experiences you have as a child and um, how your natural development is fostered or restricted. I mean, everything plays a role because nothing is separate. And to ever assume a separation, all you can ever be doing is projecting something because there is only reflection. And so human nature then, if we are responsible, human nature is what we make of it. And it doesn't mean that I am responsible for myself, and that I'm somehow especially individual and I'm the locus of my own, I'm a morally autonomous individual. I'm not saying that because I think that's a contradiction in terms to say that I am morally autonomous. Morality is intersubjective. Autonomy is not. Then you're saying you're going to be moral, you're going to be a part of a community, basically. You're going to conform to certain communal norms of behavior, but you're also going to be autonomous. So you're just projecting a dualism that's not there. It's just not there. It's not. There's no special mental substance in the brain floating around. Consciousness isn't an epiphenomenon. It's not an emergent property even. Because what do we mean by that? I mean, if we mean by that it's an emergent property of the brain, I have to disagree. It's an emergent property of the brain, the body, and the world. And everything that is included in the world, out to the galaxy and the whole universe. All of that is the world, and all of that is the brain. The brain doesn't do anything without all the rest of that going on at the same exact time. If that is what the emergent property of consciousness is, and if science telling us that consciousness is an emergent property, if it's actually true to say that, then what we're actually saying is that we are the universe, and we are aware that we are the universe. And that is a lot of responsibility all of a sudden. Again, not for me, myself, but for us, for everybody. Every human being that is capable of realizing that you are the universe needs to come to a common understanding. And they already would be at a common understanding. It's just, it comes with the territory. So that's where we're at. That's what human nature is. It's what you make of it.